Hello Dub Nation, it's always a thrill to connect with you, especially as we're about to reveal the latest news that could shape the fate of our beloved Golden State Warriors. But before we dive into this whirlwind of information, let me make a friendly request. Show us some love by clicking the like button to strengthen our bond, and hey, if you are not subscribed yet, join our channel for a thrilling and emotional journey. Don't forget to turn on notifications to stay ahead of the game.
The Mavericks have a Klay Thompson problem, one the Warriors know all too well. The Dallas Mavericks find themselves caught in a familiar dilemma, one that the Golden State Warriors have lived through for years. Even when Klay Thompson's shot isn't falling, you still need him on the floor. His presence stretches the defense, changes spacing, and forces respect. But when the shots stop dropping for too long, that same presence becomes a question instead of an answer. Right now, that's the question haunting Dallas. On Monday night, in a 110-102 loss to the Houston Rockets, Thompson struggled again, just 5 points on 2 of 9 shooting from the field and 1 of 8 from 3. For a player whose reputation was built on rhythm and confidence, both seem to have vanished. It's still early in the season, but the numbers are jarring. Thompson is averaging 8.1 points in 20.2 minutes, the lowest marks of his career, and shooting just 32.8% from the field, the 5th worst efficiency in the league among players with at least 60 shot attempts. The Mavericks, now 2-5 and sitting 14th in the Western Conference, have been outscored by 70 points in Thompson's 138.5 minutes on the floor. That's the 6th worst plus-minus in the league. Ironically, the worst mark belongs to another former Warrior, Jordan Poole. These are the kind of stats that make it hard to justify keeping a player in the starting lineup, no matter his legacy. And yet, the Mavericks may not have a choice. So that's the problem, said ESPN's Tim Bontemps on the Hoop Collective. You have this sacred cow in Klay Thompson, a player who clearly needs to start, but it's not working, and they can't seem to fix it. You can't keep doing this forever, but I think Dallas might be in a position where they almost have to. A familiar struggle. Golden State knows this pattern well. Over the years, the Warriors have watched Thompson go through cold stretches where nothing seemed to fall, only for him to erupt with 1 or 2 explosive performances that reminded everyone why he's one of the greatest shooters ever. Back then, it was easier to wait it out. Thompson's elite defense used to make the rough nights tolerable. Before the 2 devastating leg injuries that changed his career, he could still swing games without scoring, locking down opposing guards, closing passing lanes, and feeding off the rhythm of the game. That version of Klay doesn't exist anymore, and that reality makes patience harder to justify. Now, at 35 years old, he's no longer the same two-way force. His defense has slowed, his lift has faded, and his shot, the skill that always defined him, isn't there to make up the difference. For Dallas, the issue isn't just about production, it's about balance. They can't afford to keep playing 4-on-5 offensively, yet they can't afford to lose one of the league's most respected shooters, either. Echoes in Golden State. Across the conference, the Warriors are quietly facing a similar dilemma with Buddy Hield. Like Thompson, Hield was brought in for his shooting, and like Thompson, that shot hasn't been there. Through 7 games, Hield is hitting just 28.1% from 3, an alarming drop for one of the most consistent deep threats in the league. The difference is role and expectation. Hield comes off the bench, which gives Golden State flexibility. His minutes are easier to manage, and his struggles don't carry the same emotional weight as Thompson's do in Dallas. He's still a threat when he's on the floor, still spacing the defense, but he doesn't have to justify his presence in the starting lineup every night. That's the luxury Dallas doesn't have. Thompson's name, resume, and reputation make him more than just a player. He's a symbol of championship pedigree and professionalism. Sitting him down isn't as simple as adjusting a rotation, it's a statement. And yet, if the Mavericks want to find their rhythm before the season slips away, that's a statement they may soon have to make. Searching for answers. No one questions Thompson's work ethic or leadership. He's endured too much to be written off easily, 2 career-altering injuries, years of rehab, and the mental grind that comes with trying to chase the player he once was. But the NBA doesn't slow down for nostalgia. Every minute a shot doesn't fall, every defensive possession that breaks down, the pressure builds, not only on Thompson, but on Jason Kidd and the Mavericks front office. How long can they wait for a legend to rediscover his rhythm without sacrificing the team's momentum? For now, Thompson remains the starter, and the Mavericks continue to believe that one hot night can change everything, because they've all seen it happen before. But as the Warriors could tell them, belief only carries you so far. Eventually, even legends have to prove it again. A question of fit. For the Mavericks, the debate around Klay Thompson isn't just about numbers, it's about fit. When they signed him, Dallas envisioned a veteran shooter who could complement Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, punishing defenses for collapsing on their two stars. In theory, it was an ideal partnership, two dynamic playmakers surrounded by one of the greatest shooters ever. In practice, the spacing hasn't materialized. Defenses have begun shading off Thompson, daring him to prove he still commands the gravity he once did. When those shots don't fall, the offense becomes crowded, and Doncic's drives, once the lifeblood of the Mavericks' attack, lose their rhythm. The result is a system that feels clogged, hesitant, and dependent on isolation plays. It's not the fluid, spread-the-floor offense Dallas imagined. The fit just hasn't been there yet, said an assistant coach who spoke anonymously after Monday's game. Klay's trying to adjust to a new role, a new system, and a new pace. That takes time. But we don't have much time to waste. The human side of the decline. Inside the locker room, Thompson's demeanor has reflected both frustration and professionalism. He's still the same steady voice, still the first to support younger players, but there's a visible tension, the kind that comes from knowing your name carries expectations your body can't always meet. At 35, Thompson isn't just fighting opponents. He's fighting time, rhythm, and the memory of who he used to be. The Mavericks coaching staff has tried to balance respect for his legacy with a need for results, but that balance grows thinner with every loss. He's earned patience, one team source said. You don't turn your back on someone like Klay after a few bad games. But there's a fine line between patience and denial, and we're trying not to cross it. Teammates have echoed similar sentiments. Doncic has publicly supported Thompson, emphasizing that the team's offensive issues extend far beyond one player. But privately, players know adjustments are coming, whether in rotations, minutes, or responsibilities. The weight of legacy. Thompson's struggles have reignited a broader conversation across the league about how teams manage aging stars. The NBA has long celebrated longevity, but it rarely offers a gentle landing for those who can no longer play at their peak. In Golden State, Thompson's shooting slumps were easier to endure. He was surrounded by continuity, by teammates who understood his rhythm and a system designed around his strengths. Even when he missed shots, his presence alone could tilt a defense. Dallas doesn't have that luxury. This roster is still learning one another's tendencies. And for a team built to compete now, not in a year or two, patience becomes a calculated risk. The Warriors could afford to wait because they had years of trust built in, said a Western Conference scout. The Mavericks don't. Every game matters for seeding, for confidence, for chemistry. That's the reality. Strategic crossroads. Coach Jason Kidd now faces one of his toughest early season decisions, whether to continue starting Thompson or shift him into a role that better fits his current production. The numbers point one way, loyalty and locker room dynamics point another. For now, Dallas has avoided making any public declarations. Kidd has spoken carefully about Thompson's slump, choosing phrases like finding rhythm and working through it. But internally, the staff has been analyzing lineup data and spacing metrics that suggest change might be necessary. Some in the organization have floated moving Thompson to a sixth-man role, not as punishment, but as a way to control matchups and restore confidence. It would also allow the Mavericks to start a more athletic wing alongside Doncic and Irving, giving the offense the spacing it desperately needs. Still, such a move would be delicate. Benchings of future Hall of Famers are rarely straightforward. They ripple through a locker room and often redefine relationships between players and coaches. You don't just bench Klay Thompson, one veteran player said. You have to handle that with care. You have to make sure it's about basketball, not pride. Echoes across the league. Around the NBA, front offices are watching how Dallas handles this moment. The Warriors, in particular, have taken notice. For years, Golden State wrestled with the same questions: how to honor a champion's legacy while confronting the demands of the present. In a quiet way, Dallas is now living that same tension. The numbers may say one thing, but the emotions behind them tell another story, of a player who helped define an era, now searching for his place in a league that keeps moving faster. Meanwhile, in Golden State, Buddy Hield's slump serves as a subtler reminder of the same truth. Even the purest shooters are never immune to time, pressure, or adaptation. But because Hield's role is smaller, the stakes aren't as public or as painful. For Thompson, every game feels like a referendum on what he still has left. What comes next? The Mavericks have 7 of their next 10 games against Western Conference opponents currently above .500, a stretch that could define their early season. The team's front office is monitoring not just wins and losses, but how the offense flows when Thompson is on and off the floor. There's still belief that he can rebound. A handful of strong shooting nights could change the narrative quickly. But as one Maverick staffer put it, hope doesn't fix spacing. If Thompson rediscovers his rhythm, Dallas' offense could look entirely different within weeks. If not, the Mavericks may be forced into uncomfortable decisions sooner than they expected. Either way, this stretch will test more than Thompson's shot. It will test Dallas' patience, leadership, and willingness to confront the line between respect for the past and responsibility for the present. The Warriors' dream trade target after the Pelicans' disastrous start. The Golden State Warriors may have found their dream trade target, and it might be coming from a team in free fall. Despite a solid 4-3 start to the 2025-26 season, the Warriors have made one thing clear over the first 2 weeks: they still lack a true secondary playmaker. As much as Stephen Curry continues to orchestrate the offense with his usual brilliance, there's a growing sense that Golden State could use another creator, someone who can handle the ball, space the floor, and defend multiple positions. With the New Orleans Pelicans off to a nightmare start, 6 straight losses and no signs of stability, that need may align perfectly with opportunity. Enter Trey Murphy III, a player who fits the Warriors' DNA. Around the league, every front office keeps a mental list of players they value, whether or not those players are actually available. Murphy has long been one of those names, a 6'8" wing with elite length, defensive instincts, and a pure repeatable shooting motion that holds up under playoff pressure. If a player like that suddenly becomes even potentially available, smart teams take notice. Murphy's combination of size, athleticism, and versatility checks every box the Warriors typically covet. He's the type of wing who can slide seamlessly into Steve Kerr's motion-heavy offense, play off Curry's gravity, and hold his own defensively in switch-heavy schemes. He doesn't need the ball to make an impact, but he's skilled enough to create his own shot when needed. He's not just a fit, he's the kind of player who could extend Golden State's title window. Why Murphy makes sense for Golden State. The Warriors have already retooled their roster around experience and leadership. The off-season addition of Jimmy Butler gave them toughness, defense, and another reliable shotmaker who can create in the half-court. But even with Butler in the mix, the Western Conference remains brutally competitive, filled with teams that can throw waves of athletic wings at you. That's where someone like Murphy becomes invaluable. He's the bridge between the old guard, Curry, Draymond Green, Butler, and the next generation of Warriors talent. His ability to defend multiple positions, hit threes at a high clip, and run the floor would give Kerr more flexibility in lineups, allowing him to keep pace with younger, faster teams while maintaining defensive integrity. He's exactly the kind of player you want next to a core like that, said one Western Conference scout. He can switch, he can shoot, he plays with energy, and he doesn't need 15 shots a night to be effective. That's the blueprint for longevity around stars like Steph. The strategic fit. Murphy's value extends beyond the box score. Defensively, his wingspan and timing allow him to thrive in switching schemes, something Kerr has leaned on heavily during his tenure. Offensively, he stretches defenses to the breaking point. When he's on the floor, opponents are forced to respect his shot, opening the driving lanes that Curry, Butler, and Green depend on to generate movement and mismatches. In short, he's the kind of two-way connector the Warriors haven't consistently had since their prime championship years. If Golden State were able to land Murphy, it would give Kerr the freedom to experiment, running small ball lineups with Green at center, using Butler and Murphy interchangeably as defensive anchors on the wings, and maintaining spacing without sacrificing defense. Timing and opportunity. The question, of course, is whether the Pelicans are truly ready to make changes. Teams rarely move young, talented wings like Murphy unless the season has gone completely off track, and New Orleans seems to be trending that way. A 6-game losing streak has already fueled speculation that the front office might consider reshaping its core around Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. If that happens, Golden State would be foolish not to make a call. There's precedent for this kind of move. The Warriors' front office has long balanced loyalty to its veterans with an awareness of timing, knowing when to act and when to wait. Bringing in Murphy would not only fill an immediate need but also prepare the team for the inevitable transition from the Curry era to whatever comes next. The bigger picture. Golden State still believes its championship window is open. Curry remains elite, Butler has brought a new edge, and Green continues to anchor the defense. But the league has evolved, and the Warriors know that sustained success now requires depth, athleticism, and positional versatility. Murphy offers all of that, and he fits the Warriors' culture of unselfishness and intelligence. If the Pelicans' struggles continue, and if New Orleans starts listening to offers, this could become one of the most intriguing trade opportunities of the season. For the Warriors, it's not just about chasing one more title, it's about finding the right piece to bridge their past greatness with the future that's quickly arriving. And Trey Murphy, by all accounts, might be that bridge. What a trade could look like. While the idea of bringing Trey Murphy to the Bay is enticing, the logistics are where the conversation gets complicated. Murphy is still on his rookie-scale contract and represents one of New Orleans' most valuable long-term assets. The Pelicans would only consider moving him if they were convinced that their current build isn't working, or if a deal brought back immediate help and future flexibility. For Golden State, that could mean parting with one of their young players and possibly a future first-round pick. Names like Brandon Podziemski, Jonathan Kuminga, or Moses Moody could surface in trade discussions, depending on how aggressive the Warriors' front office is willing to be. The Warriors have shown in the past that they are not afraid to make bold moves when the opportunity is right. The Jimmy Butler trade last year was a reminder that this organization still thinks in championship windows, not rebuilds. You never want to waste the final prime years of a generational player, said a league executive familiar with Golden State's mindset. If they believe Trey Murphy gives them another real shot at a title, they'll make the call. That's how they've always operated. Why the timing matters. The early season in the NBA is often full of overreactions, but for some teams, it's also a wake-up call. New Orleans' 6 straight losses have exposed deep issues on both ends of the floor, inconsistency in shot creation, defensive breakdowns, and an inability to close out games. The pressure is mounting on the Pelicans' front office to do something. Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram have shown flashes, but the supporting cast hasn't clicked. Murphy's shooting and spacing were supposed to be part of the solution. Yet as the team continues to falter, the organization might decide to explore structural changes rather than minor tweaks. For the Warriors, that uncertainty represents an opening, a narrow window that championship-caliber franchises are trained to recognize. Potential impact on the Warriors' system. If a trade for Murphy were to materialize, Steve Kerr would immediately gain a new set of options. He could deploy Murphy in smaller lineups alongside Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler, maximizing defensive versatility while keeping enough shooting on the floor to stretch opposing defenses. Murphy's ability to run the floor, spot up in transition, and defend both forward positions would fit perfectly in Kerr's fluid, read-and-react offense. It would also reduce the burden on Curry, allowing him to conserve energy for late-game stretches, a key factor as he enters his late 30s. Kerr loves players who can make quick decisions, said a former Warriors assistant. Murphy's one of those guys who doesn't overthink. Catch, read, move. That's exactly what keeps the system alive. Around the league, reactions and reality. Other teams are watching closely. Several Western Conference executives believe that if the Warriors were to land Murphy, it would re-establish them as a legitimate contender, not just for this season, but for the next 2 or 3 years. Meanwhile, for the Pelicans, trading Murphy would signal a major philosophical shift, from trying to build a balanced young core to prioritizing star-driven restructuring around Zion and Ingram. It could also lead to ripple effects across the conference, as other fringe contenders might feel pressure to act. Golden State adding Trey Murphy would be like when they brought in Andre Iguodala a decade ago, one scout noted. He's not a superstar, but he's the kind of piece that completes the picture. The risk and the reward. Of course, there are risks on both sides. The Warriors would be betting on Murphy's upside and health, while giving up youth and potential flexibility. The Pelicans would be parting with one of the few players who truly fits a modern, switchable style of play. But both organizations are reaching inflection points. Golden State knows its championship core is aging but still capable of winning at the highest level with the right support. New Orleans, on the other hand, faces the harsh reality that potential doesn't always translate to progress. That's why this idea, still theoretical, but increasingly plausible, feels like more than just trade speculation. It's about timing, identity, and the constant push and pull between the future and the present. Looking ahead. The Warriors aren't in panic mode. Their 4-3 start shows promise, not crisis. But championship teams don't wait for problems to become obvious. They anticipate them. And right now their biggest challenge is clear: finding another dynamic two-way player who can both complement and someday carry forward the standards set by Curry, Green, and Butler. If the Pelicans' struggles continue and the lines of communication open, Trey Murphy could become the most realistic and impactful trade target on the board. Because in Golden State, the window is still open. And if history has taught anything, it's that when opportunity meets preparation, the Warriors rarely hesitate to make their move.